Okay, welcome everyone. I think we will wait just maybe one more minute for the others to join. But let me start to introduce who will be with us today. So first of all, thank you for joining our Q&A session. And today here with us there is our head of technical support team, Zuzana, and
Hi everyone.
our photogrammetry specialist who is also creating some of our reality capture tutorials, Jakub.
Hello, everyone.
How it will go, we will have three topics. First one will be regarding licenses. The second is regarding app inquiries, and third one is features and features request. Both Zuzana and Jakub will go through already asked questions, which was via the link that was provided you prior to the registration. And then you can feel free to ask in the Q&A section rather than via chat. And then after each section, we will go through the questions that you have asked. So I think we can start. So I will leave it to Zuzana to start.
Okay, thank you, Anna. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. As Jana mentioned, we try to sort of group the questions that you've already sent us into three sections. I will cover the licensing and the questions regarding the licensing. The first one was, have you considered letting people utilize cameras greater than 24 megapixels on Steam? You could do this by using total megapixels per project, like PPI instead of images count. Well, regarding the Steam license, some time ago, we have also created some sort of poll on our Facebook group to gather the feedback from the users. And based on this poll and also based on their statistics, we try to find some sort of compromise and the best fit for the most users. And the limitation of 24 megapixels actually comes from this feedback. Steam license is meant to be a hobbyist license, and the limitations are set to actually fit the hobbyists and their projects. But yeah, this is something that we can forward to sales department and maybe raise a discussion. We are still discussing our licensing options and maybe preparing something for the future. So we will forward this and maybe sometime in the future, but not for now. The second one, how should I reconstruct a square? I have 4,000 pictures, but it would be way too expensive. I'm not sure if the person who asked this question meant to be expensive in the PPI licensing or any other license. Well, if it concerns PPI licensing, that's some sort of unique licensing system. There are several ways how to optimize the price of your model based on your request and based on the frequently asked questions. We also prepared a tutorial on this topic, and it covers some sort of tips and tricks how to optimize the price for the PPI project. 4,000 pictures is not a hobbyist project. We can agree on that. So maybe if you don't want to use PPI, you need to check one of our licensing options. All of them are present on our website. If it's just a one-time project, you can always add it, for example, to the invoice for your customer. And regarding the tricks, PPI licensing is actually based on paying for the inputs, and only for the inputs that are used for creating geometry. That means alignment and meshing. So in this video, you can also find some tips how to, for example, downscale your images a little to lower the price, use them for geometry, and then use high resolution images for the texturings, for example, or some sort of play with the alignment, when you can actually minimize the number of images used for the alignment. In PPI licensing, you can export and import components without paying first. The components are sort of free. So you can optimize the alignment, reduce some images, and in such way also lower the price of your project. You can check the video on our YouTube channel. The third one and the last one from the licensing that we had in the Slido is, hello, can I run both the Steam version and PPI version on one system? The answer is yes. Steam version is a separate installation which runs through the Steam platform, and you can have a standard version downloaded from our website installed and also the Steam version installed. I hope you can see my desktop, but for example, this is the icon for the standard version and this is the icon for the Steam version. And you can have them both installed at the same time. And not only the PPI on the standard version, but also other license. Also, on the Steam, we offer, it's called a demo on Steam, but it's a PPI version, so you can actually run the PPI version directly via Steam platform and use PPI licensing method also on the Steam. So it really depends on your preferences. There are several options. Okay, maybe Anna, you can check if there are any other licensing questions. These are that I have
no.
in the.
That's it for the licenses questions, but feel free to ask more in the Q&A section. But since there are no more questions regarding licenses, we can then move to app inquiries, and for that Jakub can start.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Janka. So the first question is, what workflow would you use to get the best results from an incomplete dataset without EXIF data? So something like this happens when you import a video to Reality Capture and you convert the video to single frames. And these frames have no EXIF metadata. And in this case, Reality Capture sets all of the priors, for example, the focal length, to unknown. And it will try to do its best to approximate the calibration and lens distortion. But you can help Reality Capture if you know these parameters by changing the priors and setting them to approximate. I would not set them to fix unless you have a very accurate calibration, and I wouldn't also use fixed calibration for simple video frames. I never use video in Reality Capture personally, but I understand that sometimes there is no other option. So I tried it myself. And in the first alignment, I set all the priors to unknown, and Reality Capture was able to calculate the focal length, and it was really close to the real one. I got 25 millimeters, and the lens was actually 24 millimeters. And I can actually show you or share you my screen with the project. One more second. This is the one. Okay, so this is the project. So I just imported the video, Reality Capture interpolated the frames. And when I click on one of the inputs, here you can see the prior pose is set to unknown, prior calibration is also set to unknown, prior lens distortion also, it is set to approximate. But for the first alignment, I just align the images and the registration calibration. Here you can see that the focal length is calculated to be 25 millimeters in a 35 millimeter format. And so it was really close. So for the second alignment, I could try to set the focal length. So in prior calibration, I would set the prior to approximate, and I would just choose the focal length to be 24 millimeters and run the alignment and compare. So this is the way I would try it. But like I always say, best way to learn something new is try it yourself, because you can download the Reality Capture PPI version for free and do your experiments. Okay, so the next question. I usually get blurry ghosting in textures, and I think this is caused from misaligned cameras in the alignment stage. Any practice advice how to solve this? So I would say that about 80% of a successful project is about the photos and about the way you capture them. So first, make sure that your photos are sharp without motion blur, and they are also focused on your object. And Reality Capture can reconstruct only the points that are visible on at least 2 images. But we always say the more images, the better. And also a tip for you is just don't take the photos perpendicular to the surface. but also take more photos at a slight angle. And this way, or the best way how to imagine this is a double grid flight with a drone. Just set the camera is also set to a slight angle, so it is not looking directly at the surface. And so this is a tip how to capture the photos. And another way how to fix these misalignments is to use control points and control point weights. Just place the control point in the problematic area and realign the project and check if the misalignment was fixed. Or if not, you can increase the control points weight. I go over this extensively in one of our other webinars that you can find on our YouTube channel. I will share you the screen so I can show you which one I mean. So here, this is our YouTube channel, and this is the video. Reality Capture Free Webinar Advanced Workflow for a combination of images and laser scans. So click on this video, and I go over extensively about control points and also control point weights. Okay, so the next question is, when working with one source, for example, 24mm lens, everything in RC is fast and accurate. When mixing drone and camera, it gets slower and the results ambiguous. Any advice? So if you import more photos to reality capture, for example, from a drone, you will have to, reality capture will have to work with more data. And of course, it needs more time to process everything. I'm absolutely not sure what you mean by ambiguous, because if you have enough overlap between the photos from the ground and also from the drone, there won't be any problems. I recently recorded a tutorial about merging interiors and exteriors on our YouTube channel, so you can check it out. I will show you the project that I used for the webinar, for the video. So this is the project, and I used a 24mm lens on a mirrorless camera from the ground, and I also used a drone with 24mm equivalent lens, and everything aligned perfectly in a single component, and there were also no misalignments. Even the reconstructed surface was very nice when I switched to solid. And this mesh was already simplified under 40 million triangles. So no misalignments, the walls are nice and very good quality. So definitely check this out, just check this video out. Okay, the next question. Before importing in reality capture, some adjust the images, like lower highlights. What adjustments do you recommend? And most important, what should be avoided at all? So I personally shoot only in RAW, and I post-process my images in Lightroom. I usually bring up the shadows to 100 and lights to -100. And I also add a bit of texture, and that's it. I do not recommend to remove the lens distortion, because reality capture will calculate the lens distortion and correct the images by itself. If you already have some very accurate calibration, you can add it and lock the parameters directly in reality capture. That is the fixed option that I mentioned in the first question. And what to avoid? I would definitely avoid transformations like cropping the images, for example. The next question, how many cameras, photos are enough to connect per CP for proper alignment? Sometimes you can connect hundreds of photos and go in a lot of time-consuming issues. I'm sorry, but I'm not entirely sure what you mean by this question. So if you are watching this, please specify the question more a little bit, please. Because if you have enough sharp photos with high overlap between each other, there is no reason to use control points at all. And this is something that I also explained in the tutorial that I mentioned about merging the exterior and interior of the building. The next question, is there any way to enlarge point cloud size or increase point cloud density shown in 3D view before reconstruction? Currently, there is no way to enlarge the point cloud size. I mean the actual size of individual points. So that is not possible at this moment. But there is a way to increase the point cloud density shown in the 3D view. You can find it under the application settings and max points to display. I will show you my screen again. Another project. Here, so I will go to the workflow and application settings. And here you can change the max points to display. By default, it is set to 10 million. But this setting does not control the sparse point cloud density, which are the detected features. This setting only controls the density of the dense point cloud. So the point cloud that is created after reconstruction or during the reconstruction. Okay, the next question. Can I export camera poses from a reconstruction? Yes, you can export the cameras. There are multiple formats. There are some text formats which contain the coordinates and also the rotations of the cameras. And you can also export the cameras together with meshes, for example, in FBX or Alembic formats. And later you can reuse these camera positions in other 3D software, for example, some projection painting. Okay, the next question is about masks. It's possible to mask part of image in alignment and meshing. But when I texture, is it using masked parts of images? So I recently did a tutorial about masks. And I will share you my screen again. Oh, I'm sharing it already, sorry. So where is the YouTube channel? So here. I recently made this tutorial. It is about scanning small objects from all sides using masks. So I talk about masks there. And I also mentioned in the video that, yes, you can use the mask during the alignment and meshing step, but masks are not used during the texturing step. I can show you a project I prepared for demonstration. This one. And I want to demonstrate that I reconstructed a small part of this mesh. And for the texturing, I disabled all of the cameras but this one camera. And I also applied the mask to it. So I am in this 2D view, and I will press the tab on my keyboard. And now you can see the outline of the mask. So if the texture was using the mask layer, it would only project this part and this part on the mesh. It wouldn't project the tree. But since the masks are not used in the texturing process at this moment, the tree will be projected on the mesh. But you don't have to worry about this if you have multiple cameras looking at this specific place on the mesh, because during the texture blending, the algorithm will make sure that the tree will disappear from the mesh. You will only see the concrete surface on the mesh. Okay, so let's go to the next question. With DSLR pictures, all the times I get the message, not enough memory, 40 million. What is the main solution? We put this 40 million triangle cap there, so the 3D view of reality capture is smooth in real time. And this limit depends on how much VRAM your graphics card has. So if you have 1 GB, the limit is 8 million triangles. If you have 2 GB, the limit is 16 million triangles. If you have 4 GB, the limit is 31 million triangles. And if you have 6 and more, the limit is 40 million triangles. So that is the hard cap right now at this moment. And then there is a following up question. How to create high resolution models that exceed the 40 million triangle count? What is the trick? Do you have to create a grid and export separately to combine later? The resolution of the object depends on the detail that is present in your photos. And there is no special trick because your model is reconstructed. It only can be viewed in real time in the viewport. And besides this 40 million cap, there is also a limit for the texture resolution. At this moment, the real-time renderer can display up to 1/16K texture. So if you want to see the full resolution of your mesh and of your textures, you have to render an image or a video animation. Okay, the next question. If an alignment results is not good in all photos, 3 or 4 components using 75% of the photos, can these components then be merged? If you are getting multiple components, the answer is yes, they can definitely be merged. There are multiple ways, but before using any control points, try to click on Align again and see if reality capture will be able to connect them automatically during the optimization step. Sometimes this can happen. But if this doesn't work, then you have two other options. The first option is that you need to take more photos. You need to take more photos in the parts that will be used to connect the components, or you have to place some control points. And I talk about control points in the video that I already mentioned about the merging of interior and exterior. But we also have other videos on our YouTube channel that are talking about control points, for example, the series from SciArc. So I definitely recommend you to go and watch those. The next question, can you please explain what parameters are required for alignment of photos? What parameters within the photo set and what can cause a photo not to be aligned? Like I said before, you need to have a lot of photos and they need to be without motion blur and they need to be in focus of your object. And there also needs to be high overlap between them. This high overlap means that each following photo should be roughly should see roughly 60 or 80% of the previous photo. But don't confuse this, they do not have to be in a sequence. It is just a recommendation to shoot them in a sequence because then you can easily track what you photographed and what you didn't photograph. And the main reason that the photo is not aligned is that there are blurry images and also that the photo is not overlapping with other photos. Next question. What is rate of sight within alignment? Okay, so I will share my screen. Or yes, I can click on this project. I will change my layout. Let's use this 1+2 layout. I will make both windows a 2D view. Or no, let me use this layout. This will be better. And I will drag and drop two cameras that are near each other. So first this camera and this camera. And now I will go to the alignment tab and click on rate of sight. And the rate of sight serves to check the alignment. So the ray should be passing the same point. If I zoom in, somewhere here maybe, or here, this is a good spot. So you can see that the ray is going through the same spot. So this is this function or this tool serves to check your alignment. So this is the rate of sight. Okay, and the last question, or it's a suggestion. Can you please briefly talk about the settings and options within the user interface? Okay, so I can do that, but it needs to be really briefly because there are a lot of settings in reality capture. So let me share, example, this again. So first we have the application settings that are located in the workflow tab. And these settings, usually the ones that I use the most is this cache custom location. By default, it is on the system drive, but I have a dedicated SSD drive. It is best that the cache is located on your fastest hard drive or solid state drive. So this is the setting that I usually choose the most time. And also I often change these coordinate systems. You can set the coordinate system for your project and also your output coordinate system. And there are also some settings for the licenses, and there are also some global settings which you can import and export. And next, we can check the input settings. When I click on one of the inputs, for example, this very first photograph right here, we have some settings. For example, I sometimes disable cameras for certain steps. I can enable or disable the camera for the alignment, for the meshing step, or for the texturing and coloring step. I can change the weight and texturing. This is also something that I choose very often. I can also lock the relative poses for more alignments. Then we have the reconstruction settings. Go here to the reconstruction tab, and in the reconstruction settings, oh no, here. Here are some basic settings about the reconstruction. I usually don't touch the mesh calculations at all or the advanced settings. I sometimes change the normal model depth map calculation downscale, By default, it is set to 2. Sometimes I change it. And I also sometimes change this minimal distance between 2 points, but this is for the laser scans only. But you can also change the setting. Where is it? I can't find it right now. Oh, here it is. Minimal distance between 2 vertices. Okay, so this is the setting I also changed. This setting has an effect on how dense your mesh will be. Next, we have the texturing settings right here. And here you can specify the unwrapping style for your texture. For example, here, maximal texture count, fixed textile size, adaptive textile size. If you want to get the best possible resolution of your texture, make sure to click on fixed textile size and choose the textile size to optimal. Also, you can change the maximal texture resolution or the gutter, which is 2 pixels. This is the distance between UV islands. And I think that these are the most advanced, these are the most used settings in reality capture. And I think this was the last question. And I think that Susanna can now continue.
Yes, please, Zuzka, if you can take a...
Okay, thank you very much. So the next question, how can I automate the process with passes and send those files to a designated drive? I'm not sure if I understand what are the passes or what the user means, but regarding the automation, I will share you my screen just a second. There are several ways how to do it. We have, we call it in reality capture CLI, command line interface. You can either purchase CLI license that has this feature, or you can use scripting or command line processing also in the PPI version, and also in the free mode without the licensed inputs. So you can basically try it for free once you download the application. And there are several ways how to automate the processes inside reality capture. When you open in-app help section and scroll down, there are several sections regarding our command line. And this one is sort of a tutorial which guides you through the different topics and different processes. You can either paste the commands into Windows command line, basically just call reality capture exe. You can see it here, and paste the reality capture commands after this, which sort of serves as parameters for this reality capture exe and are executed in a row. Alternatively, you can use BAT files. Basically, you just create a text file and rename it with an extension .bat, for example. This one, you can open it in a notepad and paste your commands and scripts here. You can use Windows commands. You can find them on the internet. That's the best way how you can learn it. You just type what you wanted to do, and there are lots of forums covering this topic. And for example, this first section is dedicated to setting the variables that are used in the following script. Here I call reality capture exe, and these are the commands that we have in reality capture, and those are executed in a row. Another option is also use our own format. It's an extension rccmd. It's also a text file, and into this file you paste only the commands of reality capture. You can find them either here in this tutorial. There's the name of the command and the parameters. Either required, it means that you must use this parameter, and fill in this parameter, or optional parameters. This means that you can use it or use the command even without it. So you basically just paste the commands and the proper parameters into the file. I'll show you, for example, this is the load command. It should start with the hyphen load, and this is the path to the reality capture project I want to load. You can use double quotes when, for example, there is a space in the name of the file. If you use them also for the past, then there's no problem. Problem is when you don't use them with the public. When there is a space between, then it returns error. So I recommend to use them. And then you can just add another command into the next line. And this command or this RCCMD files should load the project and then align the images with the settings in the application. This RCCMD can be used for purposes you want to, for example, script or run several processes, but you also want to interfere with the user interface, for example. User interface is always open with when you use command line interface. And you just need to drag and drop the file into the application. As you can see, something is going on. And in the console view, we can see that the project was loaded and the alignment went. So this is the way how you can automate the process. And the next part of the question, how to send those files to a designated drive. Well, if you want to save the project, you just use save command with the specific path and specific name of the file that you want to save. We are also preparing some CLI scripts, some basic CLI script. They will be posted on our forum, so please stay tuned and we will share some of them, perhaps also in the help section and maybe in our sample that is on our website as well. Another question is, how do detect markers work? What is the best position for markers in full body scanner? How many, what is the spacing, etc.? Well, how detect markers work? Detect markers are specific targets that you can export from reality capture, and then application can recognize them on the images. And I do recommend to export them directly from the application. Only this way we can make sure that those will be properly detected. You can choose from several types of the markers. There are some legacy markers from the previous versions. So we added these options that you cannot not generate them anymore, but you can still detect them if you use them from the previous version, etc. And we support circle markers, several types, and also square markers. You can find the detect markers through also in the help. And you can find how many different markers can you actually export with this type. If 160 markers is enough for you, then I would recommend to use this single ring 12-bit markers. It's also recommended by our developers, and you should get the best results with this marker. If you need more, then you can use a higher bit rate. And here you can export 2000 markers, 2000 different markers. There is a generator, so you just paste how many markers you want to export, how many markers you want per page, etc. And it's exported in the PDF with a specific name on it. Then you just need to make sure that the marker is visible on at least, I would say, 3 images to properly detect it in the application. And the detection works like this. You just load the images into the application and run detection. The number of required measurements, I use 2 or 3 to eliminate some false positives. This way you can eliminate that some other patterns are not detected as markers or as control points. Once the markers are, another option is to choose, when you use layers, you can have mainly with the full body scans, for example, geometry layer with some projected pattern. I have it here. You can see there is some pattern projected, and this is the geometry layer. And you can choose if you want to detect markers on geometry layer or the texturing layer. The texturing layer is without the pattern, and sometimes it might help to detect the markers properly. And you can see the markers here. Also, make sure that any part of the circle is not covered, or even this one blank. The blank is also useful when detecting markers, so it's not crossed, for example, here with the line. And once you run the detect markers tool, Each point will be created with its specific name. With this name, you export the markers and also detect. So you always know which marker is which. And you can then assign coordinates to these markers, etc. Regarding the best positions, well, it's really hard to say. You need to try it yourself based on your setup. For example, here the markers are based on the floor because they are used to create some sort of local coordinate system and to preserve this coordinate system among each scan. If you want to use markers for proper alignment, you can paste them on the sides, on the edges, but it is hard to tell how many. You need to really try it, but make sure that the markers are visible on at least 3 images, and also I believe the limit is that it needs to be at least 100 pixels large on the image to have it properly detected. Another question is also regarding the full body scanners and markers. To get better alignment of photos in a full body scanner, can detect markers be used with flight logs? Well, yes, it can, because flight log actually gives coordinates to the images and markers are detected as control points. So you can use flight log with full body scans. For example, if you want to preserve the coordinate system among scans, but you have some sort of bending camera setup, not completely fixed, because when you import flight log, the positions of the images are not locked. They can be fine-tuned during the alignment, and the markers can actually help during the fine-tuning, and they can help with the alignment. What is the difference between flight logs and control points? Can they be used together for better alignment when creating models? Well, the next part is, I believe, the same as the previous question. You can use control points and flight logs together because those are actually different things. And what is flight log? Flight log is a text file in reality capture. Well, flight log comes from the drone industry, because when you fly, you can write the positions of the camera when capturing the image into some sort of log or some sort of file. But in principle, it's the name of the file of the image, and its 3D coordinates in any coordinate system. Basically, these are local. In the local coordinate system, when you import the flight log, you actually choose in which coordinate system your coordinates are. And the difference between control points is that the control points are manual points which you identify on the images, and control points with the type on actually don't have to have 3D coordinates. When you, for example, import control point measurements, there is no 3D position. It's basically the name of the image on which the control point is identified, the name of the point. Here the point is named based on the marker, and these coordinates XY are the coordinates on the image. So in the image coordinate system, not in the 3D coordinate system. So you can use these points also in a georeferencing, because they carry no information about the 3D position. They carry the information of the position on the specific image. The next question, can flight logs be used alongside synthetic markers for better alignment of cameras? Well, yes. Do you have any general tips for better alignment of cameras? I think Jakub covered this topic in general and also in some of his webinars. There are several options. It raised the number of images, number of overlap, sharpness of the images. You can a little fine tune the alignment settings. For example, tell RC that the overlap among images is not so high. So actually during the feature detection, the larger area of the image will be covered. And also raised a little features detected, but I will recommend to fine tune these settings very, very carefully, because it might lead to detecting some false points. If you raise, for example, the sensitivity too high, it can detect noise as point, and also it might lead to higher memory consumption and also to slower alignment. So as Jakub said, it is always best to try, but try carefully, and you will then learn how the application behave. Well, another question is how the tick markers work and how many should be ideally placed in the synthetic full body scan. Well, this is not possible to tell. Also, regarding how the tick markers work, as you can see, we still have it marked as experimental. The reason for this is because we are still improving it, and also in the next version we will improve it. So perhaps if you have some data sets in which the markers detection does not work as you would imagine, please send it to us to support@capturingreality.com, and we will try to use this as a reference and fine-tune the algorithm. So I can promise that we will try to make it better because it's on our roadmap. What are the differences between the marker types? Is the one type better to use than another? Well, I said that before. We recommend, if possible, to use circular 12-bit algorithm. To my understanding, square April tags are not so. I wouldn't not so good, or not. We are not so confident in using them. But you can still use them, and if the results are not correct, you can send the datasets to us. But if possible, use the simplest one. Another question: how are control points used? Can they be saved and used again on different photo sets when scanning an item at the same location? Well, yes. As I mentioned, control points in reality capture can be of several types. The basic one is control point of a type point. You can change the type when you select a specific control point. And the type point actually does not have assigned 3D coordinates or prior coordinates, and it serves as some sort of constraint, and you tell RC that this point is definitely on those images. So that's how control points work. And they have a large weight during the alignment process, and the algorithm is trying to fit the alignment on the control point, because once you place them, application some sort of considers that you place them correctly and you trust them and that this is the right solution. So it tries to fit them on the control points. Not completely fixed, but they are very helpful. And yes, they can be saved. As I mentioned, it's only the XY position on the specific image, and you can do it by export control points. And as you can see in the tooltip, it's in the form of image measurements. So it's the image. You can either set only the name of the image or the specific path as well. The name of the image and the XY coordinates, and once you load them and the application finds those images in the scene, it will assign the control points on those images with these specific names. Okay, so that was the last one from the Slido questions. I believe we can maybe run with the Q&A posted here, or can we continue with the feature request?
We can continue. We can go with the Q&A that were asked. There's also one in the chat which I want to start first, as you were on the detect markers. Okay. There's how do you add coordinates to markers? Can you show an example, please?
Yeah, sure. I can change the type of the markers to type point, because once you run the automatic markers detection, this is the state that you give. You have the control points of the type point and the images assigned to them. And if you want to change them to ground control points, you can do it either manually to change the ground control point and assign coordinates, or alternatively and faster way is to prepare a file with the positions of the control points. Oh, sorry. For example, like this one, when you have name of the ground control points and its 3D position. This is in the local coordinate system, and those are the measurements of the base on which the woman is standing, used to define the local coordinate system. So this is just a text file, and then I go to workflow tab, import ground control points. You can find the specific file here and choose the format. It's XY in my case. The space is separated, it's automatically detected. If there is any header, you can ignore the first line and you choose proper coordinate system, in my case local. And as you could see, the control points were automatically changed to ground control and the coordinates were assigned. Here you can see the platform and the measurements. So this is the way.
Okay, thank you, Zuzana. So then we can continue with the Q&A session questions. So first one, is there a benefit to using a drone with high quality GPS even from ground photos, considering carrying it around rather than using a still image camera? Don't know if it's
maybe this is a question for Jakub. Jakub, would you like to answer that?
If I understand correctly, that you have a drone with RTK or PPK support. So this accurate georeferencing is or RC benefits with this accurate georeferencing with georeferencing of the whole project, but this accurate georeferencing does not help the alignment with the ground photos, if that's what you're asking. It helps to georeference the project, but it doesn't help the alignment with the ground photos.
Okay, so I hope that helped. Let's move to another one. Can I change image values in my raw files, export as DGA after I purchase the images already for linear specular path? So I don't know, for Zuzana or
I believe
Jakub.
this is the question for the PPA licensing. I think there the purchasing is mentioned. Once you, well, PPA licensing works for the specific image file. This means that we do not store the image name or the specific image on our servers. We only create sort of hash for the specific image, some sort of footprint, and once you load the images, it is recognized. So if you change the image in any way, it will be treated as a different image. If you maybe in this case, using layers would help.
Okay, thank you. To move to next one. I wonder about coordinate systems and projections. As I understand, the coordinate system is one thing and the other is the projection flattening of orthophotos, for instance. Or am I misunderstanding how this is working?
I'm not sure if I understand. Maybe I can try. Jakub, you can then add something, some of your opinions. Well, you can have 3D coordinate system and also projected coordinate systems, if that's what you mean. And you can use both in reality capture. Well, with projected coordinate systems, you actually project to XY coordinates and use height value as a Z. For example, each country has its own projected coordinate system. So you can use them. You can also define own coordinate systems by editing the EPSG database. It's stored in the installation folder. So you simply need to find the definition of your coordinate system on the internet and then paste it, and you can use it inside reality capture.
Okay, thank you. Then we have I don't know if this was answered or not, so I think I may have missed it when I had jump of call. Was the question about non-rectangular reconstruction areas answered? Or, I don't know, or Jakub, if you have it, or Zuzana, whether there was a question.
I can answer it also. I'm sorry, there is no plan for non-rectangular reconstruction areas at this moment.
Yeah, it was planned to be answered in the feature request, so that is the reason why we didn't answer that yet. So I'll bet maybe we can do it now. Well, this is not possible yet, but it's in our list of feature requests. I will add also your feedback and sort of rate its priority, and perhaps in the future it will be implemented.
Okay, thank you. And we have quite a longer one. If in one of the projects I created a reconstruction of the room, later on I wanted to add more details to the missing parts by adding more photos. It was also necessary to keep the same position of the exported mesh. I tried to play with the prior pose fixed position, with lock pose for continue with ground control points, but never managed to achieve the desired results. It felt like the main issue was with the set ground plane. I could not reapply the same ground plane transformation to the new, reapply the same ground plane in transformation to the new component. So,
yeah, this is really a long one, but
yeah, if maybe it's a long one, then we can write up the question, because there is another that if it's too long we can skip it and then we can cover it later on. So it's up to you, Jakub. Then we can maybe put the answer together and forward.
yeah, we will put the answer together. Don't worry, Andre, we will answer your question.
Okay, so the next one is there any advantage using 8-bit or even 16-bit TIFF over low compression JPEG? Will it slow down the system a lot, even with high bandwidth NVMe SSD?
When you import, for example, when you import a 16-bit TIFF to Reality Capture, you will get a notification that we recommend to process them and convert them to 8-bit JPEGs for the geometry layer. That means for the alignment and reconstruction. And if you want to preserve the 16-bit quality for the texture, then the original TIFFs will be used for the texturing. So I think this is the best way how to do it, because you can definitely see when you compare an 8-bit JPEG with a 16-bit TIFF, you will see the differences also in the JPEG compression. But for the alignment and for reconstruction, the 8-bit JPEGs are fine. But some visual effects houses, they required that we support 16-bit TIFFs, so that is why we implemented the layers. Use 8-bit JPEGs for reconstruction, meshing, and 16-bit TIFFs for texturing, if you need them. If you don't need them, you can just work with JPEGs. It's really, it really depends on what you need.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have, I think there's the last 2 questions, and then we can move to the final section of this Q&A session. So this is more of a hardware one. So I want to set up multiple computers running Reality Capture. We will be processing scans of 100, 200, 8 to 12 megapixel images. Can you recommend a motherboard, CPU, and graphic cards combination for fast reconstruction times? There are lots of options, and I'm little unsure of what the best combination would be.
Well, I definitely recommend checking Puget Systems, because they are also doing some benchmarks on Reality Capture. So, or check with other users, because we don't do benchmarks here. We just usually implement or new things based on the feedback from the users. So that will be the best place to start. Puget Systems, and then try asking this question in our Capturing Reality Arena and also other photogrammetry groups.
Yeah,
Yes.
may I add, I completely agree with this. It would be helpful to use the community. They can share their knowledge with you, and that would be the best source of the knowledge. I'm aware that also on our community forum, well, a long time ago, there was an initiative of create some sort of community benchmark on one sample data set. Maybe you can find that for thread, and maybe you can make it again alive and create some sort of initiative to create some sort of benchmark based on the user's experience on the same data set.
Yes, exactly. We will send the links to all participants after the end of this Q&A session, and I will send the links to the Puget systems benchmarks and also to the initiative that was mentioned. Okay, and the last one for this is back to the detect markers, Susanna. So is a local coordinate system in centimeters. How do you choose 0.0.0 position? What EXIF data is required? And how important is accurate colors and lighting for alignment? Can lighting be slightly different?
That's sort of a complicated question. Regarding the markers in my project, yes, those are in the local coordinate system, and those are in meters. You can actually define the units in the database in the coordinate system definition. Some of the coordinate system also use feet, so it depends on you. You can also define millimeters, but those are in meters. And in this case, it's very simple local coordinate system, and the center of the system is placed in this point, which has 0 coordinates. The height for all points is set to 0 because it really doesn't matter what the height is. And then the X and Y axes are set to form a right-handed coordinate system. So that is the way. We have also a tutorial on this specific data set on our YouTube channel, and how to use such local coordinate system when preserving the coordinate system among scans using either locked XMPs when you have completely fixed setup, or using flight lock, or now you can also use draft XMPs. If your cameras can move a little, then you need to use draft XMPs or flight locks. What was the next part? What EXIF data is required? Well, for this, none. You just import the coordinates of the point. How important is accurate colors and lighting for alignment? Can the lighting be slightly different? I believe, Jakub, did you cover this before or not? Because there was a similar question in the Slido.
There was a similar question, I think. Okay. Let me check.
Maybe you can just repeat. Well, to my knowledge,
yes, I can see it right now. Like I mentioned in one of the previous questions, when I post-process my images before I put them into reality capture, I usually also balance the exposure, because sometimes it can happen that some images are underexposed. So I balance the exposure so it is even in the whole data set. Because the different lighting then can also be projected in the texture. But if it's just one image that is off, during the blending, the other photos will just go over this one underexposed photo.
Okay, thank you. So
if I might, there is also a comment from Vlad in the chat. I can see that in his case, April text works better. Oh, well, maybe you can send us the data set, and maybe we can check with your experience and compare it with our experience, and also with the algorithms we have, and we will then maybe adjust the recommendation. But as I mentioned, the data for this testing and for this experiment is always required. So if you can send us any, it would be very, very helpful.
Yes, okay. So thank you. We will then continue with Q&A after the final part. So now we will focus on the feature request which you asked about prior to the webinar. So Susanna, you can take this over, please.
Okay, thank you. The most liked, or the most frequent, was any plans for a Linux build? Well, unfortunately not for now. For now, only the Windows version of Reality Capture. Is there any way to manually input the camera sensor info? RC keeps showing incomplete sensor info for photos taken from Sony A7R. Well, yes. First of all, this info is not crucial for the alignment, but if you would like to get rid of the yellow triangle, you can add it to your local database yourself. I can perhaps share the screen. You can find the local database in the program data, capturing reality, and you can find the sensors database XML here. And this is the list of the sensors and the CCD width. That's the information that we actually need. I've checked our database, and I'm not sure how this camera model is actually shown in our database. I can add it to our database. Please just send me one sample photo and I will do that. Or at least the name of the sensor. You can find it here once you select the image, and this is the model, and this is the name I need to check. And then I can assign the CCD width and add it to our database, but you can add it to your local database anytime. You can also find instructions on our forum in the FAQ section and also in the help section. In the help section, you can also find other parameters that can be added to the database. Another one, please can we get an option for non-water type meshes with the threshold for LiDAR? It gives a terrible result, even if it's slower to generate, it's needed. Well, I'm not sure if this will be added in the near future. I'm not aware of that, but as I mentioned, we can add it to our backlog and perhaps maybe in the future. But for now, this is the only option. And you just, if you want to get rid of the large triangles or the extrapolated geometry, you can use the advanced selection tools located in the reconstruction tab, and either select marginal triangles or large triangles with the threshold, and then filter the selection. This should be also covered in some tutorial video and also in our FAQ section. The next one, do you use a handcrafted feature detector, saved variant, or a learned one? Well, this is something that we cannot tell. Most of the algorithms behind reality capture are treated as company secret. So these types of questions we actually cannot answer. And the last one is, how can I get the recorded video from the last session? And I believe this was already answered from the webinar. The link was already sent. And from this one, I believe Jana and our marketing department will send after this session.
Yes, we
Okay,
will.
that's it from the feature requests from Slido.
Okay, thank you very much, Zuzana. So these are all questions that were asked prior to webinar. So now we have only last two left in the Q&A section. So I think this is for Jakub. Is there a point to placing a drone on top of ground control point, taking a picture to get a good GPS position if I don't have other surveyor equipment? And there's a mark that to note that it is an RTK drone, by the way.
Well, this is very interesting. I never actually thought about this. Well, definitely you can try it out. But one thing that comes to my mind is that you will also need to compensate for some kind of offset, because the GNSS receiver of the drone will be offset from the ground control point. But this is very interesting. Definitely try it out and please let us know, because I actually never met with this kind of approach to measuring a control point.
Yeah, me neither. Maybe I just wanted to add that you can also use a smartphone phone for this, but it would be very low precision.
Yeah,
but what we have in the reality capture is, for example, use map view to place some sort of geo reference you're seeing approximately. And you can place control points through the map view. I believe this is covered in some sort of webinar, right?
Yeah.
If the only point is to have your scene georeferenced not so precisely, then you can use this option.
Or you can just pick some coordinates from Google Maps, for example.
Yeah.
But in
Yeah,
that case,
exactly.
you need to know that it's not survey grade, very accurate.
Also, maybe it's good to mention that you can actually set the precision of your input coordinates. So you can set that those are not so precise and perhaps add some meters. By default, there is 5 centimeters, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there are responses. The point is to get good scale of the project and offset to have the correct height of the ground. So that's to your answer.
Well, like I said, this is very interesting. Even when you are using a RTK drone, the dataset should already be fine. But we always recommend, because I am a surveyor, we always recommend when we are using a RTK drone also to measure some checkpoints. So in this case, you don't have any other way how to measure the checkpoint. Depends on what you need the dataset for. Are you a surveyor, or what is your use case? Or what accuracy are you expecting? That's the question.
Architect.
Architect. Yeah. So if you want to use it for example, that you design some kind of building and you want to place it in the 3D model from reality capture, I think that the scale just from the photos with the RTK accuracy will be enough.
Okay. So I hope that helps.
Plus minus 3 centimeters. I would definitely at least consult this with a surveyor so he can measure some checkpoints for you. And when you compare the results, you will know for future projects if you need these checkpoints or not.
Okay, so I hope that helps. Okay, and then we have another question. Do you have any experience of exporting GCP GNSS data directly from Emil Reach equipment to RC?
I personally use a Topcon GNSS receiver. I never worked with the MLITs, but you can either send us a data set to check, but I think it should be fine. The MLITs are graded as survey grade, so I think they should be fine.
Oh, there's a follow-up. Does it need any post-processing, or can you transfer the CSV data directly from the Reach to RC? Okay.
Depends on the mode that you are using, because my GNSS receiver can work in RTK, it can work in PPK or in static mode. If I'm using the RTK mode, that means that I am getting the coordinates in real time. The accuracy is around 2 centimeters in the horizontal plane and maybe 4 centimeters in the vertical axis. I will just export the coordinates from the GNSS receiver and use these coordinates in RC. No post-processing needed. But if you are, for example, using the GNSS for some static observation, of course, you will need to download all the observations, then download observations from either from another reference station or from some virtual network and calculate the coordinates. But this is something for a surveyor to do.
Okay, so thank you very much. Okay, so as we don't have any other questions, well, I would like to thank you for joining us for these Q&A sessions. Hopefully we will have more in the future. You will receive the recording of this after the webinar, probably tomorrow, and there will be also links to mentioned tutorials, as well as to the benchmark for the heart rate requirements from Puget systems. And of course, if in the future you will have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us, or if you have any feature requests, please feel free to use our forum page or reach out to support. We are always listening to the feature requests. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us today, and have a nice rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.